Um, so I'm going to talk to you guys about how we kind of store all of our files. We've got a couple of different locations that we store files, whether they're personal files or files that the company kind of uses, or if it's something you might get from like your customers. So the first thing I'm going to go over with you guys is the SharePoint. So SharePoint's kind of where we keep all of our files that are kind of template based, scopes of work, spec sheets, stuff that doesn't really change a lot, and it's somewhere that everybody has access to. So SharePoint's one of those Office 365 programs that you got with your account, and all you got to do to access it is just log on to, it's like portal.office.com, and you put in your info, and it's one of those 20 programs that you get to. You gotta ask to be added to the team site. I know Shao, we just got you access recently, and some people had some trouble realizing where exactly our team site is, because if you just log into SharePoint, it pops up with this thing right here. The team site is that little box down in the bottom of the screen, it doesn't pop up in the main area. So you got to click on that before it'll pop up with all of our different category breakdowns. So once you get into our team site, the left side is really where you want to look to our different categories. Most of our stuff is broken down by the categories for corporate, IBWave, OEMs, scanners, and partners. I would say the most important folder in here would be the OEM folders, because that's where we store the spec sheets that we get from like training classes. So for instance, Matane went to a JMA training class a couple months ago. When you go to one of these training classes, they usually give you a big dump of files. So what he did was he forwarded those on to Jonathan and Josh, and I'll be a part of that in the future, and we'll update the team site so that everyone has access to those documents. The other important one would be the partners, because that's where you're going to see scopes, methods and procedures, and templates for specific customers. So like a lot of the American Tower projects are very specific on the scope and the policy that they want you to follow throughout the project, and they have a detailed method or procedure document that tells you exactly what you need to do for each thing in order to make sure that we perform the project as they would like us to. There's also a folder with IBWave VEX files in it, but what it is it's specific component databases for some of our customers where they have specific components that they want us to use. So it'd be like their approved parts list, basically. So you don't add in something that they won't allow you to actually use. That doesn't get used that much, but it happens from time to time. So anybody use the SharePoint yet? Or is this brand new for you guys? Steven?
I think I've seen it, but never like really opened it.
So most of the time, if you're going to be looking for cut sheets for specific parts, most of it's in there. It's a lot easier to navigate than trying to figure out where it is on somebody's site, because let's say you wanted some CommScope files or spec sheets or Corning spec sheets. You have to have like access to their portal, so you have to log into their portal, make an account, get the account approved, and then you'll be able to have access to the files. It is nice to have portal access for all the OEMs, but it's a lot easier to just log into the SharePoint because it's already there. Also, the JMA website doesn't have any spec sheets on it. So if you want JMA spec sheets, you gotta go through either their portal or through this SharePoint. Scanner folder, we've started saving our blind scans and then uploading them to the SharePoint, so that if you're ever going to like a specific county and we've already done a blind scan, then you actually already know what your channels are for the market. I would still go ahead and do the scan while you're out there, but this will give you kind of a nice target to know who owns what spectrum. Because a lot of the times when you're doing a benchmark test and you're doing a blind scan, you have to use the FCC website to try to figure out who owns what spectrum, and that site hasn't been updated in 3 years, so it's kind of guesswork at this point. So if somebody's already done a blind scan, it's going to be a lot easier to go over than trying to work your way through the FCC website. And like I said, the partner folder has a lot of scopes and mops and legends. So OneDrive is another one of the 365 accounts. This is what we use to share documents with our customers. So this is kind of like a Box account or Dropbox, something similar. You're going to upload it to this site, and then you're going to create a link from there so that they can download from it. So same thing. It's in your Office 365 portal. And you can also sync both SharePoint and OneDrive to your actual computer. What will happen is it will actually save all of the files in a folder on your computer, and then you can upload or download stuff from that directly on your computer. Well, it's not really downloaded because you've already got the file saved in that specific location, but you can upload files by just dragging them into the folder instead of having to actually go onto the web portal and uploading the documents. So when you're actually creating your links, what you want to do is once you've uploaded it to the web portal, you're going to either right click and hit get link, or once you select your folder, you're going to want to just hit the get link at the top, highlighted in red. And then when you're making your link, make sure that you choose the option to view, not edit, and have everyone have access. So there's 5 different options. There's a restricted option where only you can see it. And then there's 2 options where somebody has to have a Notora like domain address in order to access it. So if you upload that link to somebody, they're not going to be able to access it. So what you want to do is you want to have the view only with no like username or password required. And then when you're uploading files, make sure you upload zip files. Don't upload like a raw PDF or a PowerPoint or an IWA file. What will happen is OneDrive will try to open it directly in the browser, and they won't be able to download the file. So if it's not something supported by OneDrive, so if it's not a Windows program, they won't be able to open it at all. So make sure whatever you're uploading is in a zip folder. All right, so this is kind of a new thing for us. We're changing how we're doing folders on the server. So we're trying to make sure that everything we store on our internal server has the same format, so it's easy to navigate and find out what things are. Because right now, a lot of the projects, you'll have like the project, there might be 3 projects with the same name, and there's completely different revisions in each of the folders, so you're not really sure what's the latest and greatest thing inside that project. So whenever you're creating a new project now, you're going to want to copy this folder structure template folder and then paste it, and then rename that folder to whatever your project name is, dash the customer. And then so inside that folder is going to have everything related to any project we could possibly have. So each folder is going to have an ATP folder, a benchmark folder, a commissioning folder, a design folder. There's going to be a folder for any type of task you could have. And all of those documents will be put into this project folder. So even if you're doing, let's say, a project that's just a benchmark, you're still going to have all these folders. You're just going to have all of your files located within the benchmark folder. Now, I know all of you guys have your own HDD drives, internal disk drives. You can save your own files however you want, but whenever you're done with the stuff that's on your computer and you're putting it on the server, it needs to be in this format. So I'll just pop us into the actual server here. Take a look. All right. So here is that sample folder. So within the sample folder, you're going to have, before anything happens, me or Jonathan will most likely be putting the floor plans into the plans folder in either the image or the CAD version. So anything that's like a PDF or a JPEG will be on the images folder, and anything that's construction drawing sets, DWG files, those will all go within the CAD folder. And then info will have scopes of work. We're planning on putting the kickoff emails in there. So like what I sent to you guys for City National Plaza, I'm going to upload a PDF of that message and put it into this folder. And then it'll have a scope, any kind of scopes of work, that sort of information. So the ATP folder, all of our folders that have some sort of deliverables are going to have a deliverables folder, and then you're going to have a version folder with a date associated with it. So all of your documents are going to be within these folders. So this would be like, even though you might only do one benchmark for the project, it's still going to be version 1 date. So then we have subfolders to store all of our data. So for an ATP, we're going to have a folder that has all of the MDB workspaces. The raw data is all going to dump into the data folder. The outputs folder is going to contain the images of your plots, your tables with histograms, executive summaries, and the TXT files that you export from Windcatcher will all be within here. The plots folders and the tab and the tables will be sorted by carrier within, so that if you ever have to rip out, let's say, all the plots for AT&T, all you gotta do is pull out the AT&T folder. Reports, just gonna have your PDF and PowerPoint versions of the reports, and then your tab images. And then on the outside, you're gonna have your channel list of what you collected. Benchmark folder is the exact same. Commissioning will have folders for your photos, your reports, your workbook, and then you have your different types of screenshots, whether they're of the user interface, inventory logs, alarm reports, and your Spec A screenshots, and so on and so forth. So this is a new thing for us, because right now we don't really have a standardization for our file structure. So doing this will help us stay more organized. I can't see my slides. What the hell? I can see the slides on my computer, but I can't see them on the screen.
Plug back in.
I guess.
Extend the display.
Hey.
I was in slideshow mode and just decided to not do what I wanted. Alright. This was just an example of each folder is going to have subfolders associated with specific deliverables. Alright. So we have a few programs that have software licenses. Everyone should have Nitro. It lets you edit PDFs, lets you combine PDFs together, rip out images. That helps you guys with reports and packaging up some of the deliverables from the designs. If you don't have a Nitro license, Danica usually will buy a new set if we need more. Does everybody have one?
Yeah, she got mine like
Okay.
this week.
All right.
Or, yeah.
All right. We have 6 iBelieve licenses right now. They're all on specific computers. So my computer has one, Nan's computer has one, Tyler's computer has one, Andrew's got one, Matane's got one, Karin's got. Well, we have 7. Take it back. We have 7 licenses, and then there's one on the floating desktop, which is where Steven sits. So if you need to do anything in iBwave, you got to go physically to the computer. So Windcatcher, we have a server license, which sometimes you have to check out and sometimes you don't. It really depends on how it's feeling that day. But if you do, first, when you open Windcatcher, run as administrator, and then go to the license manager, and you're going to go down and check out multiple technologies for your license, and then hit apply for remote license. And our username is Notora. Our password is capital NOT1230RA, and that'll get you in there.
I think it's
I
capitalized.
don't think it's capital.
Oh, well, capital works. I thought it was capital.
Oh, yeah.
I never tried capital.
So,
Yeah.
I guess it's just NOT1230RA. And then we have one Visio license. Everybody can download the software, but you have to be assigned the license to use it. So if you ever need to use Visio, just ask Jonathan. He'll push it to your Office 365 account. Like Matane used it 2 days ago to make a fire background. But like, if you ever have to piece floor plans together or make some rack elevations off of Visio stencils,
You don't need license.
yeah, you do. You do.
I know, I did for this.
Well, you need the license to download the software. So I don't know if you have to be reassigned the license. You're supposed to have a license, but once you download the software, apparently you can just use it, is what Tanya is saying.
I mean, I didn't take license to piece the floor plans for Bellworks project.
I gotcha. All right. All right, so IT, for the most part, we're our own IT company. If you run into any kind of problems, most of the time, just ask somebody around the office. Usually we can figure it out ourselves. Now, if you can't, we do have support through Cyclone. Their email's up there. They'll put in a ticket, and you can call them at their number there. If it's like an emergency, like your computer just crapped out, can't get it to work at all, and just call Sam. He's the guy who owns Cyclone. He'll usually pop over here real quick.
So like our RAM issues, he's talking about that.
So I had that RAM issue. I talked to Sam about it. He took my computer over the weekend and figured out that it was a short on my motherboard and fixed it. So if you guys want to try that, put in a ticket with Cyclone, tell them you have a similar issue that I had. They'll probably, and then they'll ask if they can take your computer or not, basically. Say, sure, next week you guys are out in the field.
Yeah.
Probably come in and do it and get it all fixed up. I know we've tried a whole bunch of stuff with y'all's computers, try to figure out the RAM situation.
Yeah.
So I would go ahead and hit him up.
So when you say short, was it something like on the process of building, or was it just their problem of the motherboard? So
It was in the process of building, so there was
okay.
they needed a rubber spacer on the, the cooling fan for the processor, that bracket on the bottom.
Yeah.
They needed rubber spacers for the screws, so it wasn't making physical contact with the motherboard because it was so close to the RAM.
Wow,
pins
okay.
that it was causing a short.
That's probably what's going on.
So you guys may have the same issue that I had.
Probably.
All right, so mine was a little bit shorter. You guys got any questions? We're gonna go ahead.
So the projects that we're already working on are almost about to complete. Do we need to rearrange the folders in that particular folder structure, or?
This is a going forward initiative. So we don't want to have to reorganize
All the previous.
300 folders or whatever it is in the shared drive
What
right
about
now.
projects with like multiple buildings? Like Peachtree Center had like 8 buildings.
Mhm.
We just need to, like, how far down the line should we separate things into? Just as
So
far
it
as
would be
possible, I guess.
one master folder, and then you would have basically each building. So Peachtree Center had different IWA files for each building.
Right.
So you would have separate, I guess you would call the different versions in the IWA or in the designs. You would have a version for every building.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But that's kind of a different scenario. The other way you could do it, the reason that you wouldn't do it this way, I'm thinking of where you'd have a different project folder for each building, is that your deliverables were in whole Peachtree Center like packages. So like your carrier package was for every single building, right?
Yeah.
So you'd want it all to be in one folder.
Also-
You said you couldn't access something on Wednesday.
The team site for SharePoint?
I think now we can.
No, we can't.
Mm-hmm.
Forgot what it was, but I knew. I couldn't
Yeah,
access
no, you
something.
guys didn't have access to the SharePoint last week because Jonathan had to give you guys access through 365.
Okay.
But you guys should have access now.
What about remote access to the?
Yeah.
like,
Remote access to your computer.
Yeah, like TeamViewer.
So we typically use TeamViewer. It's just a software you can download for free. It lets you have remote access to your computer.
Do you do it from your phone?
You can do it from your phone.
Cool.
Mhm. So it's TeamViewer 12. You need it on both your computer that you're logging in from and the computer that you're logging into. So basically you'd need it here and at home or if you have a laptop.
Okay.
How did you guys go on the license? Because the one the team you were 12 I downloaded was like 12 days trial, 14 days trial.
The one I had was free and had no license.
If you pick a business.
Yeah, don't pick business.
If you pick
Yeah,
business,
if
like
you pick only for personal, it doesn't ask you for
Yeah.
license.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
Mhm. So if you get a personal account, then it doesn't ask you for anything.
So do you just need like a username and password kind of thing? You don't need like an IP address?
Nope, you don't even need a username and a password. What it does is your computer gets assigned a specific like login, and you just on the other side you type in the login and the password that it automatically assigns to you. You can also create an account so that you can pick devices to log into, because those codes actually change when you restart the program. So you can't like save your TeamViewer login, and like your computer restarts, it gives you a whole new login.
But you can set a password.
You can set a password though for a specific computer to where you can log in no matter what.
Okay. So does that mean you need to have TeamViewer up and running like the whole time?
Yeah.
It always runs in the background.
Okay.
So it automatically opens when you boot, unless you change the settings
Okay.
manually.
So never close that thing.
Yeah,
never restart
never.
your desktop.
Yeah.
As long
Okay.
as you don't restart it, you should have the same
Mhm.
password for your.
One thing you do want to try to confirm is that you don't have automatic Windows updates on, because it will restart your computer overnight. And you might run into a scenario like I was running predictions on a large file and it restarted halfway through the night, and so I had to start over. So I would go ahead and disable automatic updates and just update whenever you have free time.
Okay.
So you just say never turn off your desktop?
Not if you can help it.
Yeah,
I
that's
turn
mine
off
all the
every
time.
day.
You turn it off every day?
I every like when I laugh like that. So
Efficient,
it's
though.
like,
No, I leave it on. Most of us have battery backups, and the reason that they're there is so your computer doesn't shut down, even if the power goes out real quick.
Do we have the position, you guys?
I think it's only on the IBF computers right now.
I've got one.
You got one?
Yeah, I never
Heavy
moved.
ass
Yep,
thing under
yep.
the
Oh,
someone,
Yeah.
I-
That's the battery.
Someone picked mine.
Someone stole yours? Oh no.
Oh, I think I remember that when they were building one of them. Tyler's like, oh, Carn's not here. Let's grab his.
They stole yours.
Yeah.
All right.
Alright.
Anything else?
Nope.
All right. I guess I'll call Mark and let him take over.